issue of the political pendulum. In this part, we're going to talk about unknowingly, how we're being stripped of our rights as the political pendulum swings. In this section, we're going to go back to the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights. And we're going to show you how they add some insult to injuries. These people that are supposedly sworn to defend this Constitution are causing more violations to everything it stands for. So here's going to be a clip about a symbolic lawsuit. It was filed for damages for just $1 in the state of Massachusetts. Listen to this one. Roll this.
Of Health in the state of Massachusetts might have spied on people to track their movements during COVID. Those are the allegations in a new lawsuit. A report in the Maine Wire accuses the state of secretly installing surveillance software on personal smartphones without users' knowledge or consent. The report claims the state even worked with Google to do this. The lawsuit saying, quote, when some Android device owners discovered and subsequently deleted the app, the Department of Public Health would reinstall it onto their devices. The suit is asking for symbolic damages of $1. We've reached out to the Massachusetts governor, the Department of Health for comments, and we've not heard back. Stephen Robinson is the editor-in-chief of themainwire.com. He joins us now. Stephen, walk us through how you uncovered this story.
Well, the lawsuit was actually filed in U.S. District Court in Massachusetts by Curran and Antonelli, a Boston law firm. Also on the suit is the New Civil Liberties Alliance, which is out of Washington, D.C. They filed the lawsuit on behalf of two plaintiffs, one who lives in New Jersey, but also travels to Massachusetts for work, and the other who lives in New Hampshire and travels to Massachusetts for work. Now, they're representing them in a suit, like you said, is only asking for $1. They're more asking for relief in the form of stopping this illegal spying that they allege is happening on anyone with an Android device. Now, it's happening in Massachusetts. The Department of Public Health in Massachusetts are the ones who partnered with Google in order to install this contact tracing software on people's phones. But a key part of the lawsuit is that it's happening to anyone who drove through or traveled through Massachusetts during that time because they used geolocation in order to target which smartphones it would be installed on. And importantly, it only affects Android devices. And as you said, the governor of Massachusetts isn't interested in commenting on this. Margaret Cook, the commissioner for the Department of Public Health, she's not commenting on it. No one is saying who authorized this, whether it was someone in the government or someone from Google.
Just a clarifying question here. Did these smartphone users, did they have to download an app for them to be allegedly tracked?
No, they did not, Emma. So originally, the contact tracing program started in Massachusetts shortly after the pandemic began. And in 2021, they partnered with Google to create this contact tracing application. And originally, it was a voluntary thing, but fewer than 5,000 people voluntarily downloaded it onto their phones. For something like this to really work, you need a critical mass of people to have it on their phones. So rather than engage in a deliberate public affairs campaign in order to encourage people to install this on their phone, they just force installed it, according to the lawsuit. There are comments reviewing the app. Thousands of people who say, what is this? I didn't install this on my phone. I deleted it, and now it's back on my phone. So the state of Massachusetts has some questions to answer. Right now, they're not interested in answering those questions. And the privacy implications here are pretty stark because this app was reporting users' location data. It also used the Bluetooth feature on people's phones to tell which other phones they were in proximity to. So this was a vast spying campaign that affected anyone who traveled through Massachusetts. And according to my reporting, there are people in Maine who traveled through Massachusetts only once within the last 3 or 4 years, and that was in September of this year. So this spying campaign could be ongoing. There's no evidence right now that they have stopped it.
Stephen, when you look at who's compiling this data, this location tracking, who has it? And is there any evidence that they've sort of done anything in particular with it?
Well, these are all good questions. I mean, people on social media have raised the idea, hey, this is a serious, infringement on our right to privacy. How many lives did we save through this contact tracing program being force installed on people's phones? It's a good question for the state of Massachusetts to answer. Right now, they're not answering any questions. Also, I've asked them, where was this data being stored? There are rules that govern how governments and companies can custody user data like this. Where is it? Does Google have it? Does the Department of Public Health have it? Have they accessed it for other reasons? Is there any record of whoever was accessing this data or how it was used? None of those questions are answered. I've submitted a public records request with the Department of Public Health to try to get to the bottom of this, but all they're saying now is that they don't comment on pending litigation. And Governor Baker is going to be out of office in a few short weeks, and he has really no incentive to come clean about his role, if any, in this spyware campaign.
Yeah, so many unanswered questions. Just also a follow-up. You said you're not sure if this is still ongoing. Again, if you were to have an Android and travel through Massachusetts, can you put that to rest at least at this point?
I cannot. I can't say that they have stopped installing that spyware on people's phones, and the Department of Public Health isn't saying. All I know is that as recently as September, this spyware was still being installed on people's phones without permission and without their knowledge. And I also think it's important to note that the Department of Public Health, working with Google, took steps to ensure that this program would live secretly on people's phones because it isn't installed in the usual applications folder on Android devices. You kind of have to hunt for it in the settings feature of the phone in order to find it and reinstall it. So it would seem to suggest that they knew what they were doing was controversial and they were trying to get away with something in secret.
Again, not much disclosed according to this allegation. How did the plaintiffs realize that this data was being captured?
Well, that's not revealed in the lawsuit, but I think it was probably public. I think someone probably looked at the reviews after finding the app on their phone. I think people who are a little bit more tech savvy might understand the implications of an app being force installed on their phone when they went to do a little more research and saw thousands and thousands of comments of people who had similar complaints. Hey, what is this thing doing on my phone? I didn't authorize this. What kind of data is it sending into whom? So I think that's probably how they discovered it.
Okay. Plenty of questions remain. Again, allegations that the state was using an app to sort of track people coming and going, and we're waiting for the state's response as well at this point. Again, you got to be able to prove all of this in the court of law. We're going to follow the lawsuit. Stephen Robinson, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Imagine that. Imagine tech working with government to violate your constitutional rights. They forced installed apps on your phone. I don't think anywhere in the contract of your phone that there's a clause that says that should be done. Now they have no comment. Now remember, this is Governor Baker, Republican Governor Baker, who allowed this to happen. And now he's going to hand over the governorship to Democrat Maura Healy, who was the Mass Attorney General under Baker, whose duty it is to protect the people's rights and not allow for these violations to the Constitution to take place. This lawsuit is more important than most people would like to believe. But will the people of Massachusetts fight back? I don't know about that. Just keep in mind, the political pendulum swings left to right, right to left, right to left, and left to right again. Until all your rights are stripped away. About how what was taking place is really no secret. Play this clip.
We need tracing agents in the hundreds and hundreds of people, right? You take the test and then you trace back all the contacts. It's never been done on this scale before. This is an army of tracers. They're basically investigators. We will do that the best we can with this 7-state consortium. But it could have been done from the federal government on a much tighter, more efficient basis.
You know, I agree with you on this. This contact tracing is very important, and it could enable our entire country for the first time to have a real public health system, a real public health corps. And I've thought about it in a lot of different ways. Could we make this a part of AmeriCorps and encourage people to come and do this work and earn some credits to go to college, for example? Is there some other way we could do it? But I know that my friend, whom you know well, Paul Farmer, is heading up a program for Massachusetts now to try to get a state contact tracing corps. Do you think maybe you could get the governors to ask the Congress to fund that as a part of all this money they're giving you? Or maybe it's legal now to spend some of the money, but we need a national corps of healthy people who are properly trained to go out and do this contact tracing. We need the bodies.
And it seemed to us as though no sort of systematic or concerted efforts around contact tracing were taking place in Massachusetts. So the governor here, Governor Baker, invited us to be part of a consortium and to offer some of the insights and experience we've had in other countries in hiring and training a group, really a whole cadre of community health workers, or contact tracers rather. I can't help but say community health workers. And they would be virtually trained. They are being virtually trained and deployed right now. What we would do with this is that this virtual group of contact tracers would contact anybody who's tested positive to learn about their recent activities, who they may have been in contact with, and ensure that they can take steps to make sure that they can stay healthy and not spread the virus any further. So the partnership essentially is building on infrastructure that already exists in a place like Massachusetts. And it needs to be part of a whole system. So that includes ramping up testing. It includes providing really dignified isolation and treatment of everyone who's sick. And it's ensuring that people can be quarantined and at times separated in a very supportive way. We had something like 7,000 people, 9,000 people apply within the first couple of days to be contact tracers so that we can actually use people who are out of place, out of work rather, who can be trained, even lay people, to do this work. It felt like a good thing for the economy also.
But one of the things that you have to be able to do is to track people who are positive. Where were they? Who were they in contact with? How can you hem up any recurrence of this? Massachusetts has recently announced that they're going to try to build a statewide tracking program, and they've asked Partners in Health to run it for them. And they're one of my partners in the work we've done in Africa, Haiti, and other places. But where are we going to get all these contact tracers? Should we have, like you did with California did with the Conservation Corps of young people, should we have a contact tracer corps, even if we call it something more elegant? Should we really build the first public health network we've ever really built in this country around this issue?
I think the answer is absolutely yes, and I love the Massachusetts example. We were able to learn from them. We're all sharing best practices in real time. But this is an interesting point that's often not brought up. We have tracing capacity that predates COVID-19. It goes back to SARS, measles, TB, et cetera. Tracking and tracing capacity that exists in the county levels primarily, and increasing capacity at the state level. So what we're doing is we're building off that existing infrastructure and using the tools of technology to overlay. In addition to that, we're using AmeriCorps specifically. Thank you as a champion for AmeriCorps for decades. We've been able to take advantage of that workforce. Obviously, our Conservation Corps, what we have now is called Cal Volunteers. In the spirit of Sarge Shriver, we are asking people, thousands of folks, to be part of this new corps, to get trained and to help us with the tracing, because you're absolutely right. The predicate for getting back to some semblance of normalcy is our ability to identify individuals through testing, to be able to trace their contacts to isolate individuals that have either been exposed or quarantine people that are tested positive. And that's just going to require an army of folks and the capacity of consideration from individuals to allow for their privacy to be impacted by that kind of acuity of attention based upon where they've been and who they talk to.
And at the moment, in most parts of the world, due to lockdown, most of the transmission that's actually happening in many countries now is happening in the household, at family level. In some senses, transmission has been taken off the streets and pushed back into family units. Now we need to go and look in families to find those people who may be sick and remove them and isolate.
There you go. Well, that was from April of 2020, I think April 15th or something around then. And Gavin Newsom got one thing correct. Allow your privacy. You have to allow it. Where President Clinton has a mistake is the federal government can't do this because they have no right to do this. They don't have the power to do this. The Constitution forbids them from doing it. That stupid lawsuit they used has been disputed time and time again from the Massachusetts court, Jacobson case. We've covered that for you before. But here's evidence. Governor Baker knew. He knew all along. They spoke with him about this. They were involved. There's the evidence right there. And Maura Healy knew. Because you don't implement any of the policies like this without conferring with your attorney general. So the evidence is all there. These people committed crimes. And what Gavin Newsom said about the tracking thing, right down to the county level, this implements a whole array of people who knew exactly what they were doing. And when these people take office, believe it or not, government officials swear to this too. So they've all violated it. Now, who's going to prosecute them? It's time to start thinking about that. It's time to not hold it. The Clintons, Massachusetts, acknowledged. Seriously, all built on what? Harm and fear. And this isn't stopping.